Welcome, everybody, and thank you for attending this webinar, one in a series that we're offering through Kindred SF Homes. I'm Cynthia Cummins, and I'm just so grateful that you're here. It's great to see a lot of my colleagues and clients and friends here, and I know Patricia has some clients and friends and associates who've shown up. And so I want to thank you, Patricia, for making yourself available tonight to have a conversation and tell us all about estate planning. I especially want to thank my colleagues who are on the call from Kindred. Right now, I think we have Cynthia Trena, Lisa Riddle, and I know that some other Kindred associates are going to join us. The work that you do is so important, and I'm so glad that you're part of our team. And I'm reminding everyone that, as you probably already know, we as your real estate agents are part of a circle of advisors, and sometimes we have the best seat at the table in that we can really see what's needed, and we have a good bird's eye view of the other advisors you might want to have in your life. And so we can be your real estate concierge and recommend people to you who might help you on your path through life. So one of those people is Patricia, who is with DeFonte Law here in San Francisco. She was on the San Francisco Super Lawyers list for 2021. She got the Better Business Bureau Torch Award for Ethics in the San Francisco Bay Area in 2021. And you can read all about her and her work and team at her website, DeFonteLaw.com. We'll put that up here later for you to get to. And so we're here to talk about estate planning. I have to tell you that just the thought of estate planning is scary to me. It makes me feel quite uncomfortable. And I think, nobody wants to talk about the possibility of a divorce when they're in love. And they don't want to talk about dying when they're starting a family. And I know I don't want to talk about incapacitation here in what I think is the prime of my life. So, there's a good reason that it's a little bit scary. If there's anything that I would like to convey during this hour, is that what I've learned is estate planning is not just for the rich and the wealthy. Like, you don't have to have an English manor with rolling acreage and, a boathouse. In fact, in some ways, it's maybe even more important when you don't have lots of wealth to figure out a plan for what's going to happen so that you can avoid probate, and so that what resources you do have go to the ones who you love. And I think the second thing is that estate planning is not about you. It's about the ones you love. It's about your respect for and your consideration for them, the ones you leave behind. Because if it's not clear, it's always messy and it's always painful, or it's expensive and painful and messy. I really like this quote by Ambrose Bierce, which is, death is not the end. There remains litigation over the estate. So, I'm dead, but then there's the litigation over the estate. Not a problem for me, but everybody I love may be, duking it out and suffering. So I'm here to say that estate planning is a gift. It empowers you and it empowers the ones who you love. the last thing I want to say before getting into this is that I noticed, Patricia, that I was reading your information on your website, and I see that you like zombie movies.
I do. I have yet to meet a zombie show or book that I haven't enjoyed completely. What's really interesting about zombies, I just realized, because I've never thought about zombies and estate planning together, is a zombie incapacitated or is a zombie dead? What do we do with a zombie's stuff? I just don't know. And that's why I won't work with clients who want their heads cut off and cryogenically frozen, because are they dead or
are they the undead?
I just don't know.
When I read that, I started thinking, what is the connection between zombies and estate planning, right? Like, I know that one of the reasons that I need to get to estate planning is that every time I get on an airplane, I go into a panic about what is going on with my living trust. And I'll usually send some notes out to let my kids know where they can find the key to my safety deposit box. I mean, it's crazy, this anxious feeling that I get, but that's just when I get on an airplane. I have not planned for a zombie apocalypse, but I would think that if I'm incapacitated that way, I would at least want a medical directive in place, right? So that people would know that.
Medical directive that says if you shoot me in the legs, nothing will happen. What you really need to do is aim for the brain. Put me out of my misery.
Go ahead, cut off my head.
Cut off my head, please.
So, well, besides people who are worried about a zombie apocalypse, who needs estate planning? I mean,
it's a little bit surprising. Like you said, this isn't just the Downton Abbey set. It's not the mega wealthy. I don't worry about them as much because money can solve a lot of problems. And while it will be a catastrophe, it will not be an economic crisis. If somebody with a normal amount of stuff, an average amount of assets, dies without a plan, it can really, or becomes incapacitated without a plan, it can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Right off the bat, it's chaotic, it's public, and it's incredibly stressful. I think that, typical triggers for estate planning are, well, what is estate planning? Estate planning is the judicious use of documents that give the people that you choose instruction and authority to take care of you if you bump your head and to distribute your assets when you die. And so maybe it's just the California statutory forms. Maybe it's the kind of work that I do, which is about half of a ream of paper in a giant binder with all kinds of interstitial materials providing additional instruction. That's what estate planning is. And I know that it sounds like this big thing. Think of it as wills and trusts, if that feels better. In law school, we called it stiffs and gifts. Whatever nomenclature, whatever nomenclature you want to use. The triggers are have a baby immediately, super dangerous. People under the age of 18 cannot inherit. They lack legal capacity. So if you die and any of your assets are going to go to a minor, a judge is going to decide when they get that money. And a judge might just decide to give that money to another person to take care of the child. Probably not what you're looking for. Buying a house is an immediate trigger in California. Maybe the laws around the transfer of real estate on death, maybe they made sense when they were enacted. But now, especially in the Bay Area, San Diego, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, it's really punitive. $1 million house is around $50,000 just in attorney's fees and executor fees, plus another $10,000 in costs. And it takes years, and it's public, and it's chaos. So it's really important if you have real estate to make sure that you use a trust to make sure that your house, your big primary asset, is not stuck in the probate court. Another big trigger is getting married. I wish that people would get their estate plans done when they're contemplating getting married. And estate planning is not just for married people, it's also for unmarried couples and single people. A trigger that most people forget about is turning 18. As soon as you're 18 years old, you're a legal adult. Nobody has the right to make healthcare decisions for you anymore. Nobody can just go into your bank and take out money to make your car payment or pay your rent. Nobody can talk to your university unless you filled out the specific form at the university. It's a really tricky time for young adults, and it's really important if you want to set them off on the right track. It's right at 18, and they're always my favorites because they always show up in a suit with a special pen to sign their very simple documents, that you have this talk with your 18-year-old. What are we supposed to do with your body if something happens to you? And here's a terrible example. There was, he was a West Point cadet who was in his early 20s, and he was going to die. His parents approached a local judge and said, Your Honor, he's our only child. We want to extract sperm from his body to create grandchildren. And the judge said, okay, you can extract the sperm, but don't do anything with it without asking me. So they did. And then he passed away. And then they went back to the judge and said, okay, Your Honor, well, he has passed and we have his sperm. Can we now create children with this sperm? And the judge said, yes. I mean, really? We never know what's going to happen in a court of law. It is critical that adults make their own decisions. Who knows whether or not this young man would have wanted his parents to be doing this. Hopefully they never really did it, because I think it's a grief response.
Can I ask,
danger zone.
like what you're saying there, it would seems like, let's say there's parents who are divorced, they're no longer together. Maybe they have a contentious relationship. Their adult daughter is in their adult daughter. If anything happens to her, there could be a fight in the hospital.
Absolutely.
It's to make decisions.
Yes. And that's really for anyone. I mean, imagine, for those of you who are in relationships, imagine your partner, your spouse, in an argument with one of your parents or one of your adult children. And I've lived this in my family. This has happened, where the wife and the mother-in-law did not agree as to what was supposed to happen to the patient. Do we unplug him, or do we put him on life support and send him off to the nursing home? And it broke the family. And it's really important for every grown-up to make really affirmative statements about what is supposed to happen. And if you have a family member who is facing dementia, who has gotten a diagnosis, it's really critical to have a talk with them. What is supposed to happen once you actually have dementia and you've lost capacity? If you get pneumonia, if you are diagnosed with diabetes, are we treating you, or is it palliative care and we're keeping you comfortable and happy? What are we supposed to do? These are the things that will absolutely tear a family apart. And it's, everyone loves the patient. Everyone loves them. Nobody's trying to be controlling here. Everybody wants to do the right thing. The problem is that there are multiple options for the right thing. And so to maintain family harmony, keep people out of court. I don't know if you all remember Terry Schiavo from Florida, and her parents and her husband were in a massive fight. And she was in a coma for years while they duked this out in court. Eventually her husband won. She was taken off life support and she passed away. Horrible, horrible. Here in California, we don't have a statute that says who is in charge. We used to, but that was eliminated in the 80s when the AIDS crisis happened, because you can imagine these gay men who were precluded from being married, precluded from having children. So if your first statutory option is your spouse, they can't have one. Then the next is your adult child. They don't have those. And so next up is their parents, who threw them out of the house and don't respect them and show up in the hospital room and throw their life partner and their friends out of the room. So the California legislature acted pretty quickly to get rid of that law. And now it's, we don't have a rule as to who is supposed to be in charge. You're on mute, Cynthia.
Sorry, thank you. But I mean, how hard can it be to just come up with a few instructions about what you want? I mean, can't you just go online to Nolo Press or something and, answer a few questions? I mean, there's got to be an app for that to make it easy.
Oh, there are all kinds of things to make it easy. And, I laugh when I look at my my Google reviews. or my Facebook reviews where the clients say, Patricia made it so easy, because they forget. They forget that it's actually not easy. So any lawyer that you work with will ask you to fill in some intake forms, and they'll ask you, who's in charge if you bump your head? Who's in charge of your body? Who's in charge of your stuff? When you die, who should be in charge of the assets? When you die, who should be the guardians of the children? So we, at my firm, we ask clients to do that. And we don't look at it until after the end of the first meeting. And what we find consistently is that 50% of clients wind up naming completely different people, and 25% change the order. Why? Because they don't really understand what the people in these different roles will be doing, and they don't understand how intertwined these roles are. Maybe your cousin Barbara's amazing with money, so you want her to be in charge of the money. But if she hates your sister Samantha, and Samantha is your healthcare advocate, how's that going to work? When Samantha says we need in-home care, I'm not paying for that. Just to be a problem for Samantha, just to take control of the situation. All of the relationships matter a lot, and all of this is complicated. We don't hold our clients to choosing who's going to be in charge until after we review documents with them, because it's only once you get in and really review the documents and see, we name Francine, what is Francine supposed to do? That's where you start feeling confident, or you get that pit in the bottom of your stomach and you say, oh no, no, we can't have her doing this. We need Chris to do this. I will also say that trust and estate litigation is a huge anticipated growth area. And I think that these online forms are going to be a huge part of the problem. It's really easy to make a mistake. What is even scarier is there are law firms that charge very little that have their intake forms online. These online intake forms feed directly into their drafting software. So that means that whoever it is that you named in those intake documents, they're not asking you to double check with yourself. They're not making sure that you feel 100% confident that that's the person. They're simply taking your information, plugging it into some software, and spitting out some documents. I don't know what that is, but it's not estate planning. It's some other thing that I have to figure out a little phrase for, but it's lazy and it's disrespectful to the lay community.
Well, do you often find yourself, I mean, I can imagine that yes, you have to be a top-notch lawyer and understand all the ins and outs of this and how the pieces fit together, but you also must find yourself with people when they're having to make some pretty tough decisions.
Yeah.
And I think of it as sort of a predator decision for what might unfold in a hospital room, for example. And that is, when somebody says, no, my sister-in-law, Karen, I can't have her play this role. I love her, but she's not qualified, or my sister's not qualified, or my dad, he's gotten too old. I need to choose someone younger, or somebody who's not family.
Yes.
It must be challenging.
It can be. It can be choosing the people sometimes is just easy because people are very solid in their relationships, but sometimes it's really complicated. My clients who are not from the US and not from California, it's harder for them. So who is your healthcare proxy when your whole family lives somewhere else? When there's a language barrier, how do we deal with this? When there's been a rift in the family, and so you want your sister to be your person, but she doesn't get along with anyone else. So how's that going to play? How's that going to work? Right? It's, the answer to everything in the law is it depends. And so much of estate planning depends on who you love, who you trust, who's counting on you, and who just freaks you out and makes you feel worried and afraid. Those are all the names that we need first. That's all the information that we need up front. And then we want to ask you about all your stuff. And then we can start plugging in who's in charge in different scenarios and who's in charge of this.
I can do it tomorrow.
Isn't it awfully expensive? I mean, it's not $100 to get an estate plan.
No, and it should not be $100 to get an estate plan, nor should it be $2,000 to get an estate plan in California. You need time with the lawyer. So you should be spending 3.5 to 4 hours with the lawyer. They should ask you a ton of questions. They should review documents with you, and then they should spend time with you to teach you how to transfer your assets into your revocable trust. How do you deal with all this stuff and your insurance? And how do we add the trust as an additional insured on your homeowner's insurance? There are a lot of moving parts. So it's not cheap, but it's way cheaper than the alternative, which is probate and conservatorship. Those things are tens of thousands of dollars and there's no value for money there. If you create a trust, sure, there are costs on the back end of a trust. Somebody has to pay the trustee. There's a CPA, there's generally a lawyer involved, but there's value for that money. And there's value in maintaining your people's privacy. And there's value in the really fun control from the grid that you get to have when you create a really highly personalized estate plan. I don't think that it's wildly expensive. It's not $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. It's generally well under $10,000. And it's something that you do, and then you manage it over time. I like to see my clients every 3 years. I think that's a good cadence because statistically, you will change, your people will change, or the laws will change. So even if you feel steady and good, you don't know what Congress did, what our state assembly did, what the voters did, what a judge in Fresno did. So it's always important to go back and review your plan with your lawyer every 3 to 4 years to make sure that you're on top of everything. But it doesn't mean you pay that whole fee again. If you need to make changes, usually the lawyer can do that with you for a much lower amount of money.
Right. I mean, I did a living trust, my own experience, I did a living trust about 10 years ago, and I haven't heard a peep from my attorney since then.
That's really typical. I work with a lot of clients who say that to me, who are looking for someone that they can count on, that they can contact for anything. My clients call me for realtors, mortgage brokers, financial advisors, CPAs. Anytime they buy a piece of real estate, they call me because, of course, the title company has given them that ridiculous list of how to hold title, which is not helpful at all. And I wish they would stop doing that. It's important to me to be available and accessible for my clients and my referral partners. And just generally, I'm one of those people that likes to help. And a lifelong relationship is important. Your estate planning lawyer might be your only lawyer ever. We have a question. The most important first step in estate planning. The most important first step is making an appointment. The lawyer will take you through the rest of it. You do not have to get all of your financial ducks in a row. And in fact, you might find yourself absolutely infuriated if you do that, because as soon as you change all your bank accounts and do all this important work, right after you sign your documents, we're going to ask you to change title to all of it. And some of the financial institutions will force you to close that account and open a new one for no reason based in reality, fact, or law. It is a method for them to make it look like they're opening more accounts. So the very first thing is just book that time with a lawyer, interview 1 or 2 maybe, make sure you have that good feeling that you understand their process, their client experience, and what you're going to get for your money. And then pick one and start.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, I think that's the main thing is just starting.
Yeah.
I mean, I know lots of people, I work with many clients who own real estate. And one of the things I try to remember to tell them is, have you done estate planning now that you have this big asset in your life? And they say, we're going to get to that. We're going to do that as soon as we close escrow. And then 12 years later,
Yeah.
and I say, how are you holding title in your trust? And they say, no, it's just in our names.
Cynthia wants to know, does your house always have to be in a trust? So a primary residence, and it needs to be in California in a revocable trust, period, all the time, no matter what. If you have income producing property, maybe that is held in an LLC, or maybe it's held in the revocable trust. And that's it depends on your risk tolerance, on who your tenants are, et cetera. You generally should not, there's no legal reason to have to pull title out of the trust in order to refi, but lenders are lenders. And it's actually an area where there is a huge problem because lenders are national and they will take community property, take it out of the trust as a joint tenancy and pop it back in as a joint tenancy. And this is a huge problem in California and it's something to look out for. So if you have a revocable trust and you're going to refi, call your estate planning lawyer and have them look at the deeds to make sure that the title company is preparing the deeds properly. Every 70% of the deeds I see are wrong in some way because of the title code. It's shocking.
Right. I mean, it's just so easy to let, there's so many little details here that's why, I'm good at doing my job, like helping people with their real estate. But then, I'm not, people will say, how much, what should I do for my insurance policy? How much replacement value? I don't know. I don't know that, but I know an insurance person who does know that.
Exactly.
And
Building out the team. And never, when you're buying real estate, just get the minimum amount that they want you to have just to close. That's just dangerous.
Oh, for insurance? Okay. You heard it here first, everybody.
You cannot cheap out on your insurance. You cannot. You have to have umbrella insurance and the best homeowners ever, because remember all those big storms we had? You don't want to be insured for linoleum and fleckboard. You really don't. You don't. You want replacement value.
We were talking about insurance right before we started this today. And I was asking the question about, it's tricky sometimes, I think, for people to figure out who to give how much to, especially in a blended family situation or a family where there's discord, or maybe you have 3 children. One's a gem, one is, an average achiever, and one is never going to do anything on their own ever. But you were talking about life insurance and how that can scale with what you
think life insurance and estate planning are best friends. They are BFFs, and they spend all their time together. I worry about a surviving spouse. Sometimes I tell my clients, I don't care about the kids. And it's not that I don't care about the kids. I do. I care deeply. But what I'm really worried about, first off, is a surviving spouse. And if there's enough life insurance for that surviving spouse to, and you make your laundry list, pay off the mortgage, take 10 years off from work, travel the world on a cruise, whatever is important to you, that's the number that you need. And you figure that number out with a financial advisor, and you work with an insurance broker. Right? Your estate planning lawyer is not going to help you figure out that number. It's personal. And then there's that, we want a $10 million policy, but we can only afford a $1 million policy, right? So you do that homework. And when it comes to, and then, if you've really taken care of the couple, then it's an avalanche of money for the kids, should the worst thing happen, right? If you both died while the policies are still in effect. When we think about multiple children, some people say we just give them all the same amount. I say it depends. It just depends. People use the word fair. Other people say equitable. I like to ask really specifically for my clients with adult children, what are they like? What are they doing? Do they own their own house? Do they have their own estate plan? Are they organized? What does their spouse do? Like, let's really get a good picture of things. Does one of them have substance abuse problems? And so regardless of how we split up the money, because maybe it's going to be 40, 30, 30, or 50, 25, 25, just depending on how they're situated. And then we layer into that, but how are they getting their money? Maybe one of them works in finance and is amazing with money and already owns 2 properties and is on their way to being the millionaire next door. We don't have to put a lot of controls and constraints around that money. We're going to use the asset protection language so that they have options with their money. But we're not going to force a lot of nannying with that money. But if we have another child who has substance abuse problems, we're going to use a lot of very aggressive language to make sure that this money does not hurt that adult child ever. And maybe they're never going to be able to pull out cash. Maybe it's always going to be the trustee providing for them. And maybe the third is just very young and inexperienced and just doesn't know. And so let's use really special language for that, where we have, this is what we'd like you to spend your money on. You can come to the trustee to ask for these things. Get into real estate, start a business, go visit your grandmother in Guatemala, whatever these things are that you want to encourage them to do. And then there's a lot of fun things that you can do to enhance the relationship among the siblings. You can say that trust funds can be used to facilitate vacation time and family reunions, to bring your children, their spouses, and your grandchildren together.
But they all.
So there are all these
have-
neat
yeah.
things that you can do.
Well, now that brings up the question about, how much control can you exert from the grave, or should you? Or, I mean, you're guarding against that to some extent, right?
I like carrots. I like to encourage people towards being happy and using money wisely and not letting it hurt them. And here's what we think you should use the money on. What I don't like are, you can't have your money until you do these 7 things. I think that's really disruptive and destructive. I think that is not beneficial to the survivors. And it also might create a problem under California law. If you just give somebody a gift with no strings attached, it's called a lucrative gift and they just get to do whatever they want with it, right? If you give someone an onerous gift, if they have to do something in order to get that, that's actually work. And for a married person, that might convert this gift that you're giving them into community property. So that's a little scary and dangerous. So I don't like trusts that, I'm very, very cautious about trusts that say, you have to go to college and you just have to meet these benchmarks, because people are going to do what people are going to do. And you really just don't want the annual spitting on your grave. You don't want that. You want whole, happy people when you're gone. So I always look at every gift from the perspective of the person who is receiving the gift. So how do we use your positive relationship with this person in a way that enhances the money for them, so they don't squander it, they don't give it away, they don't feel guilty about it, it doesn't make them sick mentally or physically, that they feel okay, and that the money isn't just intrinsically tied to your passing, that they're able to actually prosper and do well with this inheritance.
Now, isn't the idea also, I think you and I talked about this in another context, that the idea is to use your money while you're alive.
Yeah, get out there.
You can, don't squander it, but don't just be saving it all for the kids, is maybe not a great idea.
Well, that's more of a financial advisor issue. I don't really get into what you're supposed to do with your money while you're alive. I am very cautious. And so I'm a big proponent of disability insurance, of long-term care insurance, because if you're living and you're not well, that's a big danger zone. And I'm not so much worried that no one's going to inherit anything. I'm worried that you are going to run out of money in a ton of problems, and you are going to suffer a diminished quality of life. But I'm not so worried about making sure that there's a ton of money left over for the children. That's really not my role. That's much more of a financial advisor.
It's so funny how these things weave together,
That's why it takes a team.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that when we sit down and consider these questions and really look at, when you have, when it's not just hypothetical and you're actually thinking about what will happen if I have dementia and I'm not able to, advocate or act for myself. It gives one a chance to really reflect on what's important to us and to think about our lives.
Yeah, it's weird that your estate plan kind of becomes your mission statement and your vision.
Say more about that.
My favorite example is, in my firm, we don't name guardians in a will. It's an old, lazy way to do things. And a will becomes public when you die. So everyone knows the names of your children, sometimes their birth dates, sometimes their social security numbers. So just imagine you've lost your partner in your home with your minor children, and this information is public. It's not great. Or imagine you're the guardian and everybody on the dark web knows this. So we do this very long form, separate guardianship nomination that we're allowed to do in California. And clients said that it's very important to go to the family reunion every year. So I got a postcard from Alabama saying, "We are very mad at you," from clients. I thought, oh my God, we will call you when we get back. I said, oh, okay. I'm scared. So when they got back, they called me and they said, we're sorry. We were pretty buzzed, but when we sent that postcard, and we feel bad, and we're sorry if it scared you, but here's what happened. We wrote in our guardianship nomination form that it is a value for us, for our children to attend the family reunion, that there's money in the trust for the guardians to take our children, and that absolutely at least every other year this has to happen. Well, the family reunion was in August in Alabama, and the bugs were this big, and it was so humid, and we hated it. And we had the worst time, and we're really glad that we went. And we didn't realize that our guardianship nomination form was going to force us to be the parents we want other people to be for our kids. They said it was an incredible parenting experience. And I was so surprised by that and really touched by it. It's always my favorite document. I love seeing what clients write. It's super touching.
Are there, I mean, I guess that you could do all sorts of things in as part of this. You could, you could gift your book, your novel that you've been working on, and have
Absolutely
allowed at your funeral or something, right?
Yep. We can be as creative as you want to be. Yes. Do I have special advice for people with disabilities? I do. You have to work with an estate planning lawyer who specializes in special needs trusts. And I would say they should also be a certified specialist. I would like to see them have an LLM. I know some great ones. You also need a financial advisor who has a specialization in this area, because all of your financial concerns are different. Excuse me. You don't have somebody who's going to be an adult at 22 and fly away. You have somebody who may need support their 30s or 40s or 50s and beyond. So it's really important to work with a team that knows how to help you plan financially for a very long life for your children, a very long life for you with these children, and then also plan on death to make sure that whatever it is that you leave them doesn't inadvertently remove all of their social benefits. It's hyper technical, very, very specialized work. You don't work with just anyone for that.
Is that something that you do, or
I do not. It is not an area of expertise for me. The great lawyers who do this usually have a child who is suffering with a disability. So they know all the regional centers. They have all of the practical advice in addition to the legal advice, and they have the terrific network to help. And then do I partner with a financial advisor? I do not. People ask me all the time, do you know a great financial advisor? I know dozens of great financial advisors. When I'm helping clients find a financial advisor, it takes about 20 minutes, because I'm trying to understand, well, first of all, how much money do you have? What's liquid? Do you want investment advice? Do you want financial planning? Do you actually just need a money coach because you're looking at a specific project? Is it ethical investing? Is it retirement focused? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you like somebody who uses a lot of jargon? Do you want to spend a lot of time with them? Do you want somebody more relaxed and personable? Like, where are we going with this? And then usually I give one name with a list of questions to call and interview the person, spend about 20 minutes. I usually get it right, because I spend a lot of time with the financial advisors. I learn so much from them. And it's important to me to be able to provide a really good referral, because it's stressful to interview person after person after person.
Yes. And it's also taking up those people's time if it's not on target. Like I know dozens of financial advisors, and they have different specialties.
Yeah.
And including one person who offers a second opinion service.
Yeah.
So you can take whatever your current advisor has laid out for you and just run it by this other objective source, right? To say,
yes,
yeah, I like this, I don't like that. Again, both Patricia and me and all of my colleagues at Kindred have people that we can recommend to you that you can check out. There's another question.
But don't send us an email that says, can you refer to me to a financial advisor? Because the answer will be no.
Right.
Not like that. It takes a discussion. Speaking of real estate, does it make sense to leave a house to 2 or more kids equally? All right. The old rule in California was you could leave your real estate empire to your children, and they would not suffer an increase in property taxes. The property would not be reassessed. And if they wanted to sell it, generally speaking, they could sell it, no capital gains. Voters of California ruined this for everyone. Mostly the Realtors Association wrote the law, and the voters of California voted in. So it's horrible. The new rule is everything gets reassessed when you die, except a primary residence where your child goes and lives in your primary residence, and only up to $1 million. And only up to $1 million sounds like an insane thing to say, but here in San Francisco, everything costs more than $1 million. So you're generally going to be some reassessment. So when you're thinking about leaving real estate to multiple children, so the neighborhood I live in the Excelsior district in San Francisco, and there are lots of multi-generations living in a home. Most of my neighbors have been in the neighborhood since the 40s. And I keep losing my neighbors because what happened, the general scenario is dad dies, mom lives. One of the kids moves in with mom, takes care of her whole life. She, thinking it's fair, leaves her entire estate equally to the 5 children. So now the one who's been living with her didn't pursue their own real estate, didn't do a million things, taking care of mom, is in the position of maybe having to buy out the others. If the trust isn't structured properly, what this eventually looks like is everybody, there's transfer tax and income tax, plus multiple reassessments, depending on the timing. So it can be a disaster. If you have real estate and multiple kids, you have to work with an estate planning lawyer very, very carefully. And if you have an old trust that left the primary residence to your daughter and then the vacation home to your son, these are not apples and apples anymore. Because if your daughter is going to live in your primary residence, she's not going to suffer this huge property tax hit. But your son, he gets to deal with that black eye every single year. So these are not equal gifts anymore. It's just gotten a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it's I've come up against this with many different clients. You know, a lot of times it's the siblings who are trying to figure out what to do with the asset and a lot of times one of them is wanting to keep it. One of them may be wanting to live there. The others want to sell it. The one who wants to stay can't buy the others out. It's fraught anyway, but it's especially fraught if this hasn't been considered in advance.
Yeah, and you know what can fix it? Life insurance. Leave the one who wants to buy it, the house, and leave the others cash. Done. Easy. Simple.
I think we should rename this webinar. It depends. If you've got to the point where you're wearing depends, it depends. And or what was the last thing that you were talking about? Life insurance.
Life insurance, because it depends.
What in doubt?
This question, Cynthia, is for you. Does it surprise you that we haven't seen tons more properties on the market due to the new Prop 19?
Does it surprise me? No, I think that
we haven't hit critical mass yet. We haven't had enough people die yet.
No, I remember there was a big rush when the law was about to go into effect. There was a bunch of scrambling with real estate agents and estate planners and so forth for people to try and figure out what they needed to do to keep the ship from sinking.
Yes.
It's been kind of quiet since then. I mean,
yes.
You know, the reason the realtors got behind that law was because it was packaged with property tax reciprocity and keeping your property tax down if you were 55 and older and you sold your place and you wanted to buy something else. You could buy something else and not have your property tax basis.
Yeah. So and for fire victims, but page two is a big FU to absolutely everybody. I find it racist, honestly, because I come from an immigrant family. We're not stock market people. We're real estate people. This is so incredibly offensive to me. And I want you to think about your commercial corridor, your little commercial village. Every little shop that's in there where they can afford the rent because that building has been in the family for so long, and the family that the landlords can afford to rent it at a reasonable price. When that reassessment hits, And all of a sudden this building, this $3, $4, $5 million commercial building gets reassessed. Now who are the tenants? Big box franchises.
Right.
We are going to lose the character of our cities and towns. This is a catastrophe for California.
Right. And it was, they kind of sneaked that in on the
Yep.
details of the other thing. Well, isn't that just the way life goes, right? We wouldn't even need a lawyer if it wasn't for this sort of thing, right?
If it wasn't for random people going around and putting laws on the ballot, it would be really helpful if people would stop doing that. Let's get back to estate planning.
Yeah. What, how long does it take and what should somebody expect? So you make the call, you make the appointment.
Mhm.
That's the first step. And then you try not to cancel or reschedule your appointment.
Yeah, I mean, that first call
Keep your
should
appointment.
really be half an hour, 20 minutes. And there should be some pre-vetting. They should ask you, do you own real estate? Do you have children? Are any of your children special needs? Are you here on a visa or green card, or are you a citizen, right? To make sure that you don't have a circumstance that's outside of that lawyer's wheelhouse. So there should be some pre-vetting questions. And then during the call, it's your opportunity to see, do I like this person and their approach to estate planning? And what the lawyer is doing is vetting you to make sure that you're not going to make their team insane. So it is a mutual interview opportunity. So it's really, really important that there's a really good feeling, because we're going to ask you, tell me about your mother. We have to be able to communicate. There has to be a good feeling there. It's really important for me that clients value what I do. Most of my clients come to me through referrals. Every once in a while, someone will find me on Google and they just almost yell at me during this 20-minute call. It's like, well, no, I don't want to work with. They're like, okay, so when do we start? Oh, kind of mean. Then you schedule that first meeting. And for estate planning attorneys who only practice planning, you can usually get on the calendar fairly quickly, maybe a couple weeks. Some lawyers also litigate and do probate. And so they have court obligations. And so their calendar might be a little bit fuller with those things. And so you just have to take that into consideration for timing. 2 to 3 weeks after your first meeting, you should be meeting again to review documents. It shouldn't be months later. It should be weeks later. I mean, maybe you have a vacation or a big work project or something in the middle, or you get sick or your kids get sick, but generally 2 to 3 weeks. And then the lawyer should review all of the documents with you. We do all of this online on Zoom. And so we do a screen share and go through the documents with our clients. But the lawyer should never just send you documents and say, let me know if you have any questions. I mean, either you're going to have no questions or you're going to send them a 400-page email with questions, depending on your personality, right? You don't know that you've put the right people in charge until you review those documents. You don't know if the gifts that you're giving are set up exactly the right way for that person until you meet with a lawyer. I overdraft every single gift. Every single gift is the most complicated way possible. And then we like to back off from that. So we want to show you the most ridiculous, expensive, crazy possibility. And then if you say, no, it's $20,000 and she's fine, just give it to her. Easy for us to just delete and put in that short language. So at my firm, you can sign online or in person. And different firms do this differently. With some lawyers, you go to the office, there's a whole signing ceremony. And at that meeting, they also explain to you, you have to move your stuff into the trust, talk about your bank accounts and your life insurance. At my firm, we have a concierge notary service that we use, that I know them personally, and they do all of our notarization. And then we have a specific meeting, and we like to invite your financial advisor to that meeting where we talk about the asset transfers. And we go through them one by one to make sure that you understand what it is you need to do. You should always ask, are you going to follow up with me? Are you going to chase me around with reminders? Am I ever going to see you again? Or are you just going to cut and run? What's our relationship going to be like? And I would say that some clients get through really fast, 4 or 5 weeks. Other clients, 8 to 12 weeks. But you have to remember, you have to go ask permission from other people. And sometimes my clients feel really solid. These are the people, this is what we're doing. And then they go talk to people and it's like, oh, they don't want to do it. Now what do we do, right? Sometimes we're just if you own a business, if I don't like the way the title to your house is set up, there might be some things that slow us down a little bit, but generally 8 to 12 weeks is really, really typical. Most of my clients have very little kids, and it just feels like somebody's always getting sick. Something's always happening.
What did the, I'm thinking about, there must be some kind of, when I made the title of this, estate planning is a gift of love. I think anytime that when we become intentional about our path in the world and how we relate to the people around us, there's always the opportunity for a lot of love there.
Yes.
And also unexpected joys from something as zombie scary as estate planning. There's got to be some joys. Like, I think was it you, Patricia, or somebody had told me that there was this unmarried couple who were doing their planning, and they were in their 80s or 60s.
Oh, they're in their 70s.
And
yeah.
they decided to get married as a result of their estate planning adventure, right?
Yes.
So there's one. Can you think of others that unexpected joys?
An unexpected joy was sitting with a couple in their 60s, a blended family. And I said, so when one of you dies, does the other one just get the money, or does that money need to be put into an irrevocable trust for the benefit of the surviving spouse, but also the children? How are we doing this? And she said, oh, no, just give him the money. The kids are all grown. It's fine. Just give my husband the money. He bursts into tears and says, absolutely not. You cannot just give me the money, because if I lose you, I will be a mess and anyone will be able to get their hands on me. I had to go hide in the bathroom because I was meeting with clients in person at that time. And when I finally had the courage to walk back out, they were making out in the kitchen. So that was kind of a fun surprise for me. A not so nice surprise was clients talking about who should be the guardians of their children. And she said, well, my sister. And he said, well, your sister's again, I went and hid in the bathroom while they kind of duked it out for a minute and recomposed themselves. Some really fun things that have come out of estate planning, and clients who their parents had a house, and that was really their main asset. So it was my client, he had a brother and a sister. His sister, great. The brother, failure to launch. 15 advanced degrees, no job. So I said, this is a huge problem for you, because when your parents die, your brother, how the hell are you going to get him out of that house? It's your parents' major asset. You all agree it's going to be sold. How are you going to get him out? He's not going to want to move. Well, so they went, my client went to his parents and said, and I said, you tell them all this and you blame it on me. I am the squeaky wheel, or I am the problem, right? So just say, my lawyer says I have to tell you the following horrible thing. The next time I saw them, and there was a delay because they traveled and then their little one got sick, so I didn't see them again for about 6 weeks. They reported back that in the interim, their parents had redone their estate plan, the brother had moved out and gotten a job. So that felt like a huge win for me, and I am ridiculously proud of that one.
That's fantastic. Maybe my unemployed son can get a job if I finish my estate plan, maybe.
When we talk about estate planning as an act of love, I do a lot of talks on how estate planning protects women, and I usually talk about it in a pretty aggressive way. I think it's really important, if anybody is assuming that you are going to take care of them, if it's a parent or a spouse, if it's, whoever it is in your life who thinks that you're the one who's going to drop everything and be there for them, they need to be there for you now. I want to see really good insurance for them. I want to see an estate plan that honors you. And that estate plan should come with a family meeting that explains, I am giving this one more money because this one is the one who's going to take care of me. And there will be no complaining when I'm gone. Or this is the one who is taking care of me. Everything out in the open and really honoring the person in the family who is providing this extra emotional labor and taking a hit on their income producing ability, on their ability to get promoted. I have some amazing clients here in San Francisco who leave gifts to their siblings who stayed back in the Midwest to, excuse me, work with dad on the business, take care of mom because her health is failing, to create some economic parity and not just leave all the money to the kids. I mean, just extraordinary generosity and cuteness.
Yeah, well, you know, the old model, I mean, I think about my father's mother who needed a lot of care, and it was just assumed, it was automatically assumed that her daughter, there were 5 siblings, her daughter was the one who would sacrifice and stay with their mother. There was
Yeah.
no question about it.
No question.
Does anybody else have questions that you'd like to ask? Because it's 6:30, and as I promised at the beginning, we can end early if nobody else has a
But I
question.
want to say 2 things about real estate.
Oh,
right?
okay. Well,
2 things about real estate. Number 1, do not, even though the title company gives you that piece of paper, do not take title as trustees. Do not do it. Just don't do it. Don't do it without a lawyer, your attorney saying, that's okay. Just don't do it. There are presumptions under California law that for a married couple, if you take title as trustees of your trust, that is community property. So if mom gives you $1 million and you use that money to buy a house and you take title with your spouse as trustees, you divorce, very good chance that your spouse gets half of that house. This is not what you're trying to accomplish. It's a danger zone. And the laws change. And it's really, really important to understand how you're going to own this property. Is it tenancy in common? Is joint tenancy? Is community property? Because there are differences on divorce and differences on death on capital gains exposure. So it matters deeply. And do not let any ding dong at the title company tell you everyone does it this way. I don't care what everybody does. I care about you. Every real estate deal needs to be in writing. Worked with quite a few realtors who have real estate with friends. Now, who's on title? My client's on title, not their spouse, but their friend is paying the property taxes and they're splitting the revenue on the income that this rental is making. My client dies. The spouse will inherit the real estate, completely cut the business partner out. And the business partner has no legs to stand on because nothing's in writing. And I see this all the time. I mean, all the time. Please do not get reckless with your real estate holdings.
Well, I'm happy to say here that at Kindred SF Homes, we would not let that happen if we got wind of it.
No, don't let it happen. And when you were looking to purchase a house, having an estate planning lawyer on your team is really, really important for taking title, but also they're going to be that echo in your ear. Make sure you have really good insurance, get your umbrella insurance, make sure you have great homeowners insurance. Talk to a financial advisor because you think we bought the house. You have no idea what's coming for you. First of all, you have to get an estate plan. Then you have to buy window coverings. They cost about the same. I think window coverings are more. And I think that's why people who buy a house don't initially get an estate plan right away. I think you're better off when I would like to see clients when they're working with a mortgage broker so that we've got a long runway, a nice long runway. Let's get the plan in place, the documents in place, and then go buy the house.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a transaction that's closing later next month. And it was suggested that an estate plan be thought about. And the answer was, we just want to get through the escrow. We want to get our loan, get through the escrow, go on a vacation, move in, and then we will. So
5 years later, they still don't have an estate plan.
So that's part of my new protocol, and our new protocol at Kindred is to follow up with people. If they don't hear us while we're closing, is to follow up later and just say, hey, have you done your estate plan? I see Cynthia had a question about revocable or irrevocable.
Oh, okay. So generally an irrevocable trust, that's about deferring tax. And so unless you have really a ton of money don't worry so much about irrevocable trusts. They're very, very hyper specific. There are a whole bunch of different ones. And if you qualify for one, your lawyer will let you know.
So, any more questions?
Thank you so much for coming and letting us nerd out about something I love. And the whole pie thing is when my dad, who was a realtor and had 3 Century 21 offices down in San Jose in the 70s and 80s, I asked him when I was about 7, what happens to us when we die? And he said, oh, don't worry about it. You just walk past the sun, past the moon, until you get to the apple pie tree. And so the apple pie tree of life, one of my girlfriends made this for me. It's my logo. And pie is a big part of my happiness. And we often ship pies to our clients.
I love that. That's such a great story.
So the pie is not random.
Right. Although we did just have Pie Day, right?
We did just have Pie Day.
Did just have Pie Day. So yes, I want to thank you so much, Patricia, for being here. I think you're amazing and that anybody would benefit from working with you. As always, I and everyone at Kindred, we are here to help you with anything to do with home. And whether that means, is it trendy is wallpaper in now or not? Does it mean if you're looking for a plumber, you can call us. If you're looking for an estate planner, you can call us. And we're happy to help.
Cynthia, are vertical tiles just a passing fancy, or is that the hot new thing?
What? Oh, I love them, but I don't know how much longer, I'm the last to know sometimes. I don't know how much longer they're going to be in style. Cynthia Trina, what do you think? Yes or no? Oh, wait, I can't hear you. Maybe you can't. Is it a thumbs up or thumbs down on the vertical tiles? Okay, up. All right. So, hey, we're ending at 7 minutes early. When does that ever happen? I think we get extra points for this.
Yes, and if you're there with someone you love, spend these 7 minutes gazing lovingly into each other's eyes.
Thank you. All right. Good night,
Thank you
everybody.
for having me, Cynthia.
Thanks.